Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another Lost in the Pond reaction, and this one is 7 ways British and American pubs are very different. Now, I didn't actually think, I never really thought pubs were a thing in the US. I thought it was like saloons and stuff, bars. I mean, I guess bars are the same, it's just a different term for it. But again, I don't really know. I know obviously pubs, I think everyone knows that pubs are like a huge cultural thing in the UK. Everyone goes, well, everyone, but most people go to pubs or whatever to like watch sport or just hang out with your friends, drink alcohol as you do in the pub, or yeah, just get some nice food really. But yeah, people do go to the pubs a lot here. Like my brother goes pretty much every day after work. It also depends on what sort of job you have. If you work in like sort of as a construction worker or jobs where it involves hard sort of grafting and work, and you get tired and exhausted and you just want a pint or two, or you want like just a nice dinner, you'll go to the pub kind of thing. And again, it's probably the same in the US to a certain degree, but again, the comparisons, I'm interested in seeing what differences there are, because again, American pubs, I guess maybe the term is just different. Like I said, it's just called a bar, like American bars or what, but I don't really know. But we're going to check this out. Quick shout out to obviously Lawrence, links in the description to his channel if you want to subscribe to him, of course, because yeah, his videos are probably the ones that I enjoy reacting to most when it comes to the US. But yeah, before we get into it, quick shout out to my Instagram, my Twitter links in the description for those interested. Save my Patreon links all there for those interested. But let's check this one out, man. Let's see what Lawrence has got for us in this one, man.
In the US, this varies by state, but there's not a single one in the Union that mandates that pubs close as early as that.
I think in Norwich, the city that I'm from, there's a pub for every Sunday of the year. There's like 57 pubs. But I feel like there's more pubs here. It's just quite a small city, but there's... I don't know, actually. I've got to see this. A pub for Sunday of the year. Is it Norwich? Is this a thing? A church... Oh, a church for every week of the year. Pub for every day in the year. I got it. That makes more sense. I was a bit off, but...
Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to pubs. Pubs, where would we be without them? A question that's been
What's this? Oh, we've got a message.
decisively answered in the hellscape that is 2020. In fact, while we're on the subject of the pandemic, do keep in mind, Uncle Toby, that a lot of what you're about to hear in this video might temporarily not be true. That doesn't mean that it's not ordinarily true, it just means that pubs have had to make a lot of changes on either side of the pond.
Is this in the UK or the US? This is like a UK pub, but maybe it's just like a US one, because obviously they're taking...
And the key word there is either. I think before I...
Wait, actually...
Key word there is either side of the
BT Sport, so this is the UK.
pond. And the key word there is either. I think before I moved to the United States, I was under the assumption that America didn't have pubs, but specialized instead in bars. But America does have pubs. Sometimes they'll be the kind of pubs that are looking to mimic those in Britain or Ireland. And those ones are easy to spot because they'll say something like Johnny's Irish Pub, or the Elephant and Castle in allusion to Britain's many castles and elephants. But then America does have pubs in its own right, usually called something along the lines of Merv's Tavern. And since I'm now familiar with how pubs operate in both countries, I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about 7 ways that British and American pubs are very different. So go and order yourself a pint of Foster's or Miller Lite as we order in the first round.
Drinking.
The story of my drinking
one.
life goes
The
a
big
little
one.
bit like this. At the ages of 16 and 17, I could waltz up to the bar of any British pub and order myself an absinthe. And that's not because 16 is
Can you get absinthe from pubs?
the legal drinking age in Britain. It's because A, door security is usually pretty lax, as in there is no...
It's actually a lot more, it's getting a lot more stricter here, to be honest. You need to get like show ID before you get drinks and stuff now. Unless you just look like you're not like 18 or even look like you're 30. You have to look at least 50 years of age. But
door security. And B, I've always looked 4 years older than I am. No, the legal drinking age in Britain is 18, so imagine my surprise on my 18th birthday when me and a few mates went to paint the town red, not literally, that's another story, and I got carded for the first time in my entire life, and the problem was I didn't have any ID with me.
Yeah.
Fast forward 9 years, 27 years old, and I've moved to the United States of America. What's the first thing that happens as I enter a pub? I get carded. But then depending on the state, it is not unusual for people that are much older, sometimes 70 years older, to be carded at an American pub. Trust me,
What?
saw this with my own eyes. It happened to Dick Van Dyke. Of course, by then, I'd learned my lesson and I did indeed have some ID. Ironically, I get carded a lot less these days, one of the perks of being a YouTube sensation. And 38 years old. So nationally, the legal drinking age in the United States is 21, but that hasn't always been the case. In some states, it was even once like Britain, a pub could legally serve somebody who was 18 years or older. In 1969, while Neil and Buzz were landing on the moon, teenagers could legally land themselves a glass of Blue Moon, but only in the states of Louisiana and Neil Armstrong's home state of Ohio. And then something changed. By 1975, the number of 18 states had risen to 23. This was a domino effect following the recent change of the voting age from 21 to 18. The belief being that if somebody's old enough to vote, they're old enough to drink. The problem is, legislators didn't stop to think about what would happen if these two things happened at the same time. By 1983, the numbers plummeted as states moved to increase their drinking age once more to 21. This was seen as a response to an increase in drunk driving incidents. And the domino effect was complete in 1984, when President Ronald Reagan signed into law the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, which outlawed the purchase of alcohol by individuals under the age of 21.
Prohibition.
In 2020, one or two parental loopholes notwithstanding, the legal drinking age remains 21 in all US states and territories except Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands, where it's 18.
Primary
Pubs,
function.
what are they good for? Well, the answer to that question could be different depending on which country you are in. I mean, sure, in both countries, one of the chief aims of pubs is to give customers a place to get pissed until the cows come home. And if you've ever been drinking with me, that happens regularly. But the main difference here lies in their purpose in the middle of the day. In Britain, if we go to the pub in the middle of the day, often this can take on a quiet but social tone. We just go to talk over a pint. In a way, it's like how Americans go and grab a coffee. Coffee. Why am I saying it like that? One country emerges from this scenario drunk on caffeine, the other drunk on the street. Apart from that, it's the same thing. If you go into the pub in the middle of the day in America, you can usually expect that to be coupled with a sporting event. And that doesn't mean you yourself get drunk and start playing polo. It means you enter a pub that's simultaneously showing about 28 different sports. In order to do that, said pub would need to have a of these.
TV screens.
That's right. In America, the term sports bar is almost redundant, though I'm finding firsthand the same is not true of the term sports bra. Don't ask. One word, tequila. But the reason that the term sports bar ought to be redundant is that just about every pub and bar in America is worthy of that title. In other words, it's incredibly common to walk into an establishment and be surrounded by television sets. And these television sets don't typically show repeats of Happy Days, but of the Cubs losing, or at least when I'm around. In British pubs, you will occasionally find a TV, but the emphasis is not...
It depends. There's a pub here that I see that's got a huge sort of like, not cinema screen, but it's got like a 90-inch TV where like the big games are on for football or soccer. But then there's little screens dotted around for like different sporting events. So it'll be like for the rugby, which not many people will be watching it, or like the Formula One or whatever, and maybe other football games that are going on. So some pubs there is a lot of screens, but some pubs are directly like not like they're made for not like having screens. I guess so. It's more like sort of. I guess so. It's more like sort of so you can socialise a lot more with your friends and stuff. But and yeah, they're specifically not for sports basically, but. Again, there's probably just a lot more in the US because obviously the variety of sports in the US is just 10 times more here. So
on consuming television, but rather on consuming alcohol and the words of your friends. That sounded weird.
Dartboard.
Earlier in the video, I joked that we ourselves don't play sports while down at the pub. But in either country, this isn't strictly true. Of course, in Britain, this depends on whether or not you class darts as a sport. Especially when you're at the pub, because you've got a drink in your hand, which I've just realised is also true of professional darts players. Either way, darts are an incredibly popular sport in British pubs. In American pubs, even though you will occasionally encounter the odd dartboard, sometimes very odd dartboard, they're just not as big a part of the pub-going experience. And when you think about the sentence, drunk people throwing sharp objects, that probably makes sense.
It's true, to be fair.
I'm
Table
often
service.
reminded of those stories of American tourists who enter a British pub, sit at a table, and wait on a waiter to wait for them. Here's the truth: you could be waiting a long time because, unlike the United States, British pubs tend not to employ table service. And this can be a problem, particularly when the pub is heaving in the sense of crowded, not throwing up. You want to make sure you get a seat. I understand that, right? So here's what you do. If you're there in a group, one of you go up to the bar while the rest of you claim the seat. The one at the bar orders all of the drinks, and then it's his or her responsibility to carry them to the table. Just don't use the term double fisting. In America, things are different. Even during the Super Bowl, which is not a national dish, you can fully expect to receive table service in most pubs throughout the land.
Oh, wow.
Of course, this could be partially dictated by the tipping culture that exists in America. And fellow Brits, that's not the same thing as fly tipping. At the end of the day, we go to the pub to get...
See, what I've learned about in the past is in the US, you just get so much more variety, especially in like supermarkets and stuff. So I'm going to assume when it comes to alcohol, there's a lot more options to what you want to drink, but maybe not, because I guess British pubs are known for like variety in drinks, but I'm just going to guess the US variety is just loads more. But I don't know, maybe I'll be surprised.
Absolutely rat-arsed, or to have a casual drink. And so to some degree, it's going to vary from country to country as to what is on tap. There are some crossovers, and I dare say some exceptions to what I'm about to say. But there are lots of differences in the beers that are served, and this can vary from pub to pub, or even region to region. Any pub, British or American, worth their salt.
So I want to see which ones I know. So I know Coors Light, of course, because that's the biggest one. Or Budweiser, of course, one of the bigger ones. That's probably it. Moonshine, I've heard of that because of Red Dead Redemption. It was the drink that they made. I think that's it, to be honest. It is. Yeah, that is it, to be fair. I thought I'd know a lot more than that.
Will feature a comprehensive list of local beers. Naturally, these are going to be different between Britain and America, but also between regions within each of those countries. But then you get down to the big names too. In Britain, you're far more likely to be ordering the Australian beer, Foster's, than you are Samuel Adams. If that's not your bag, there's always Carlsberg or Carling. In America, Budweiser or Miller Lite. And
Budweiser is here, to be fair. It's probably not as much, but
if you want one that unites the two countries, you could go for the Belgian beer, Stella Artois, which in Britain is trashy and in the US it's classy. And then, of course, there's the pint size itself. Let me go back in time and hand you over to Lawrence from a few months ago. Great Britain might be unfairly known for its warm beer, but at least you get more bang for your buck, or should I say quid. You see, a British pint is larger than its American counterpart. To some, that might sound like something that I cooked up after, 4 pints of Stella, especially since each country defines a pint as 1/8 of a gallon. But here's the catch. Gallons are different too. In the US, a gallon is equal to 3.79 litres. In Britain, it's equal to 4.55 litres. So 1/8 of a US gallon gives you a pint of 473 millilitres. So a good old British pint clocks in at 568.
Wow.
And this is great news for American beer fans in Britain, because it means that 6 American pints are equal to 5 British ones. You'll be slaughtered before the pub quiz starts.
That's a surprise. It's actually bigger in the UK. That's a first. It's usually like, whether it's the portion sizes, the drink sizes, it's always bigger in the US. So that's kind of wild.
From the fact that you now have a particular song stuck in your head, you're probably asking the question, what's the difference between British and American closing times? You see, in Britain, right up until about 2005, it was mandated that pubs had to close at 11 p.m. On the one hand, you could get around this by starting your drinking session earlier, say at 7 o'clock in the morning. On the other, given the time difference, you couldn't stay around long enough to watch wrestling pay-per-views. But then in 2005, a law was passed that said that pubs could stay open 24 hours so long as they had a specific license. But by all accounts, it looks like most British pubs haven't applied for this license because they still shut at 11 p.m. In the US, this varies by state, but there's not a single one in the Union that mandates that pubs close as early as that. In fact, 27 states in the Union permit their pubs to stay open until 2 a.m. And it's usually at that time, after tequila, that my voice really does sound like that. Now, there are some notable exceptions to this rule. Alaska and Hawaii are to drinking times what Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands are to the legal drinking age. In other words, they're so far away from the mainland they can sort of get away with it. What can they get away with? Staying open until 4 and 5 a.m. There are state and local exceptions to those rules, just in case you were thinking of moving to either of those states. That's closing time on this episode. Let me know in the comments below your experiences of pubs in either country.
I love these sort of videos.
Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, where you can read some of my admittedly drunken sounding ramblings.
Again, shout out to Lawrence, man. I say this every time, but if you enjoy this reaction and you enjoyed the video that we watched, you're obviously going to enjoy his channel. So links in the description if you want to subscribe to him there. He deserves it, man. But let's see some of the comments. Yes, America, where at 18 you're responsible enough to drive, vote, and have children, and handle millions of dollars worth of military equipment on the army. But it's just too much to trust with. When I was 19, I was responsible for 22 million. I love this comment. It's so sarcastic. His reply, when I was 19, I was responsible for 22 million worth of military hardware, but we're still drinking illegally. Nothing better than going into a country pub built hundreds of years ago with wooden beams and a low ceiling, roaring fire, relaxing and enjoying the ambience. It's not pubs applying for 24-hour licenses that are the limitation. It turns out it's that they have to be approved by local councils, which are mostly full of... I don't know even what the fuck that means. The best British pubs are the ones that have designated area for car park providing. I actually see dartboards fairly often in bars. Rarely do I see anyone actually using them though. Pool tables, on the other hand, usually have lines. Yeah, pool tables are the go-to, man. Can't miss a bit of pool. Can't go wrong with a bit of pool, should I say. I used to sing with a band. We'd finish the set and sometimes hang out till closing, start packing up the equipment and enjoy a lovely breakfast but the owner cooked at 4 a.m. Those were the days. God damn. 4 a.m. closing time. That is wild. Even 2 a.m. God damn. I mean, here, whenever I usually go to a pub when it's not the coronavirus times, like you go for sort of pre-drinks and then you just go clubbing basically. But, yo, 4 a.m. at the pub, that sounds like a vibe, you know. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. Again, shout out to Lost in the Pond. If you want more reactions like this, suggest what you want to see in future. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe, peace.